Dr. Rodriguez, you are being removed from all space missions. Your conversion to Islam represents an unacceptable risk to the national security of the United States. The NASA director's words echoed through the soundproof room at Johnson Space Center like a professional death sentence. My name is Dr. Michael Rodriguez. I'm 42 years old and was born in Cape Canaveral, Florida, literally in the shadow of the rockets that inspired me since childhood. I graduated in astrophysics from MIT, have a PhD in aerospace engineering, and worked for 15 years at NASA as a scientific mission astronaut. I participated in 3 long-duration missions on the ISS, conducted 12 spacewalks, and was responsible for experiments that are now used in missions to Mars. Today, I am a practicing Muslim who prays 5 times a day and has found the peace I searched for decades in the depths of space. But you have no idea of the path I traveled to get here. Just 3 years ago, I deeply hated everything related to Islam. I considered Muslims a threat to Western civilization, enemies of science and progress. If someone had told me I would convert to Islam, I would have laughed in their face. But they didn't know about that night on the International Space Station, 400 kilometers above Earth, when something completely impossible happened and forever changed my understanding of reality, the universe, and the purpose of human existence. During my career, I had access to the most closely guarded secrets of American space exploration. I saw things the public will never know, participated in projects that officially don't exist, and had sufficient security clearance to know about ultra-classified military space plans. I was literally one of America's most trusted scientists. Before continuing with my testimony, write in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know which country this story is reaching. This story needs to be heard by people around the world, because it proves that Allah works in mysterious ways, even in the most hardened hearts and the most unlikely places in the universe. To understand how someone can go from hate to love, I need to tell you how this hatred was born. I was born in 1982 into a deeply patriotic military family. My father, Colonel James Rodriguez, had served in the Persian Gulf in the 90s. My mother, Sarah, was a military nurse. Our home was a shrine to American patriotism, flags in every room, portraits of presidents in the living room, military anthems playing during breakfast. When 9/11 happened, I was 19 and in my second year at MIT. I remember perfectly watching the towers fall on the dormitory television. In that moment, something changed forever in my soul. It wasn't just revolt or sadness. It was pure, crystalline hatred against everything that represented Islam. My father called that same night, "Michael, now you understand who we're fighting. These people hate our freedom, our science, our civilization. They are enemies of humanity." During the following years at MIT, I dedicated myself obsessively to my studies as a way to contribute to American technological superiority. Every astrophysics equation I mastered, every engineering project I completed, was a way to strengthen my country against its enemies. I genuinely believed that Muslims were an existential threat to scientific progress. I saw Islam as a medieval religion incompatible with the scientific method, with reason, with humanity's future. At university, I avoided any contact with students from Muslim countries. When there were group projects, I refused to work with colleagues who wore hijab or had Arabic names. My professors sometimes reprimanded me for prejudiced behavior, but I justified it as national security precaution. I went so far as to monitor online forums of white supremacists who shared conspiracy theories about the Islamic invasion of America. But what I didn't know is that Allah already had a plan for me since childhood. Every night I spent studying the stars through the telescope in the backyard. Every time I marveled at the mathematical perfection of the cosmos, every moment of awe before the infinite vastness of the universe. All of this was planting seeds that would one day germinate into the most unlikely of conversions. In 2005, I graduated from MIT with the highest honors and immediately applied to NASA's Astronaut program. During the selection process, my motivation was crystal clear: to use space exploration as an instrument of American supremacy. I wanted our flag to fly on Mars before any Muslim nation could even put a satellite in orbit. Astronaut training was brutally demanding. 2 years of extreme physical preparation, thousands of hours of simulation, studying systems that would make an MIT engineer cry. But I was determined. Every survival exercise, every psychological resistance test, every technical exam was overcome with a motivation my instructors had never seen. In 2008, at age 26, I officially became a NASA astronaut. My first mission was in 2010, 6 months on the International Space Station, conducting experiments on material behavior in microgravity. The experience of seeing Earth from space for the first time should have transformed me spiritually. All astronauts talk about this. But I was so focused on American technological superiority that I interpreted that vision as confirmation of our manifest destiny to lead humanity to the stars. During subsequent missions in 2013 and 2016, I specialized in highly complex spacewalks. I became the astronaut responsible for maintaining the ISS's most advanced systems, those that not all international partners have authorization to access. I had clearance for military space projects that officially don't exist. I knew about spy satellites, about orbital weapons in development, about plans to establish military bases on the moon. My career was meteoric. In 2018, I was promoted to Senior Mission Specialist, a position only a dozen astronauts achieve. My photo was on the Wall of Honor at Johnson Space Center. Specialized magazines called me the future of American space exploration. Universities competed for my presence at lectures. I had reached the absolute top of the world's scientific elite. I thought I knew all the secrets of the universe. I mastered the laws of physics that govern everything, from subatomic particles to supermassive black holes. I calculated orbital trajectories with perfect mathematical precision. I understood the nuclear fusion mechanisms that power the stars. But I was about to discover that the greatest secret of the cosmos wasn't in my astrophysics books. It was waiting for me at 400 kilometers altitude on a night that would completely change my understanding of who really governs this infinite universe. March 2019, my fourth mission to the ISS, scheduled to last 8 months. It was a special mission. I was conducting ultra-classified experiments on ion propulsion for future interplanetary missions. During the day, I worked in the station's laboratories. At night, during rest hours, I would observe Earth through the observation cupola, mentally planning how American technology would dominate the solar system. It was March 23rd, approximately 2:30 a.m. GMT. We were passing over the Middle East, a region I always observed with a mixture of superiority and contempt. Down there were the countries I considered cradles of backwardness and religious fanaticism. From space, I could see the lights of cities my own country had bombed in the name of democracy and freedom. Then something completely impossible happened. While observing the region corresponding to Saudi Arabia, all the lights on the ground went out simultaneously. It wasn't a regional power failure. I would have recognized that. It was as if someone had turned off a giant switch. For a few seconds, that area of Earth was completely dark. Then slowly, the lights began to turn back on, but not randomly. They formed perfect geometric patterns as if controlled by a superior intelligence. As the lights reorganized, I could distinguish forms that looked like letters, giant Arabic characters written with the lights of entire cities. I blinked several times, shook my head, even pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. But the forms remained there, clear and unmistakable. I grabbed the station's high-resolution camera and began photographing frantically. Through the zoom lenses, I could see clearly. The lights formed words in Arabic. I didn't know how to read Arabic, but I recognized the characters from my studies about enemies during college. The luminous formations remained visible for exactly 20 minutes until the ISS's orbit took us away from the region. I immediately ran to wake my mission companion, astronaut David Chen. "Dave, you need to see this. Something inexplicable is happening with the lights in the Middle East." But when we returned to the observation cupola, everything had returned to normal. The cities glowed as they always had, without any special pattern. David looked at me worried. "Mike, are you okay? Maybe it's mission stress. How about getting some rest?" I showed him the photos I had taken, but to my total disbelief, they all appeared normal. No special formations, no geometric patterns. Just illuminated cities as any astronaut has photographed thousands of times. During the following days, I tried to rationally explain what I had seen. Maybe it was a hallucination caused by cosmic radiation, although there had never been reports of such specific and lasting hallucinations. Maybe it was an unknown atmospheric phenomenon, although my training in space meteorology couldn't classify anything similar. Maybe it was psychological fatigue, although I felt perfectly rested and alert. But deep in my heart, something had changed. It was as if a tiny seed of doubt had been planted in the unshakable fortress of my convictions. For the first time in my life, I wondered if there was some force in the universe beyond those described by physics equations. This was just the first of 3 experiences that would change my life forever. And I had no idea I was about to discover that what I had seen wasn't a hallucination, but a direct call from the creator of all galaxies. I returned to Earth in October 2019, completely obsessed with finding a scientific explanation for what I had experienced. My security clearance gave me access to ultra-classified databases from NASA, the Pentagon, and intelligence agencies. I spent months secretly investigating reports of anomalous phenomena observed from space. What I discovered left me even more disturbed. There were dozens of similar reports from other astronauts, lights organizing into geometric patterns over Muslim territories, inexplicable atmospheric phenomena during Ramadan prayers, communication anomalies that seemed to carry voices reciting in Arabic. All these reports were immediately classified as radiation-induced hallucinations and permanently archived. Most disturbing was that all astronauts who reported these phenomena were subsequently subjected to routine psychological evaluations and quietly removed from future missions. It was as if there was an unofficial protocol to silence any experience that couldn't be explained by traditional science. During this period, I began to have chronic insomnia. I spent entire nights on the internet researching Islam, no longer with hatred, but with a curiosity I couldn't explain. I downloaded English translations of the Quran, justifying to myself that I was knowing the enemy. But as I read, I found verses that spoke about the stars, about the expansion of the universe, about astronomical phenomena with a precision that surprised me. And it is He who created the night and the day and the sun and the moon, each floating in its orbit. How could a book written 1400 years ago describe orbital motion with such accuracy? And the heavens, we constructed them with power, and indeed we are expanding them. How could there be reference to the expansion of the universe at a time when humanity barely understood that Earth was round? My wife, Jennifer, began to notice changes in my behavior. "Mike, you've been different since the last mission. More introspective, more questioning." She didn't know I was secretly watching lectures by Muslim astrophysicists on YouTube, scientists who harmonized modern discoveries with Islamic teachings in ways I had never imagined possible. The internal conflict was devastating. For 20 years, I had built my identity on the conviction that Islam was the enemy of science. Now I was discovering that some of the greatest advances in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine had been developed by Muslim scientists during the Islamic Golden Age. Al-Kindi, Ibn al-Haytham al-Biruni, names I knew from the history of science but had never associated with Islam. That's when I found, in an ultra-secret NASA file, a document that changed everything. It was a 1971 report from the Apollo 15 mission, describing how astronaut James Irwin had had inexplicable spiritual experiences during his walks on the lunar surface. The report mentioned that Irwin had heard celestial voices reciting in unknown languages and seen divine lights that couldn't be captured by cameras. Most shocking was an attached note, handwritten by Irwin himself. The experience made me question everything I believed about God and the universe. There's something greater governing the cosmos, something our equations can't capture. Irwin never made these details public, but the document showed he had spent his last years studying different religious traditions, seeking to understand what he had experienced. This made me realize I wasn't going crazy. Others had felt the same mysterious presence in the depths of space, but I still refused to accept that it could be Allah calling me. I continued fighting against this possibility with every fiber of my patriotic and scientific being. I didn't know the second experience was coming, and it would be impossible to ignore or rationalize. January 2020. I was selected for a special ISS maintenance mission that would involve the most complex spacewalks ever performed. For 6 months, a small team and I would replace ultra-advanced communication systems that would allow direct contact with future Mars missions. It was the type of mission I had always dreamed of, cutting-edge technology serving American space supremacy. The second experience happened during my 8th spacewalk of the mission, on March 15, 2020. I was working on replacing a communications antenna on the exterior of the station. It was an ultra-high precision operation that required total concentration. One error could be fatal for both me and the integrity of the ISS. I was in the middle of the procedure when I heard my own voice through my spacesuit's communication system, but I wasn't speaking. It was clearly my voice, my accent, my intonation, but reciting words in Arabic with a fluency I never possessed. It was as if an alternate version of myself was whispering directly in my ear through the helmet's internal speakers. "Control, are you hearing this?" I asked Mission Control in Houston. "Hearing what, Rodriguez?" "Your vital signs and communication are normal," responded Capcom. To them, there was only silence. But to me, my own voice continued reciting in Arabic with a beauty and serenity that penetrated directly into my soul. Then something even more inexplicable happened. Floating in the absolute void of space, I began to see Earth not as a planet, but as a gigantic cosmic mosque. The northern lights transformed into Arabic calligraphy, dancing across the poles. The oceans shone like blue prayer rugs, extending across entire continents. The clouds organized into formations that resembled believers prostrated toward Mecca. The vision lasted exactly 18 minutes. I know because I timed every second, trying to maintain some scientific rationality in the midst of that transcendental experience. Throughout that time, my own voice continued reciting, and I felt an indescribable peace, as if I were being embraced by the very force that keeps galaxies in their orbits. When everything returned to normal, I was trembling inside the spacesuit. Not from cold, the heating system worked perfectly. It was a deep, emotional tremor, as if my soul had been touched by something infinitely greater than any scientific discovery. I completed the antenna maintenance on autopilot, my mind completely absorbed by what I had experienced. Back inside the ISS, I ran to my personal computer and began researching the Arabic words I had heard. Even without understanding the language, I could identify some sounds and find their translations. It was a recitation from the Quran, specifically verses about the creation of the heavens and earth, about how Allah sustains every atom of the universe, about how all things in the cosmos glorify their creator. That night, floating in my sleeping bag while the station silently orbited around Earth, I prayed for the first time in decades. It wasn't directed to the Christian God of my childhood, nor to the cosmic void of my materialist phase. It was a hesitant whisper to whatever force was behind those experiences. If you are real, if you're trying to tell me something, I need more clarity. I need a sign that leaves no room for doubt. This was the second of 3 experiences that transformed my life. But it was the third experience that removed all my doubts and made me understand that Allah had been calling me from the beginning. And it happened in the most unlikely place possible, during a secret meeting with space military commanders at the Pentagon itself, where I discovered the truth about what my country was really doing in the shadows of the cosmos. May 2020. I returned from my ISS mission as a man completely transformed inside. Although I maintained the external facade of the model astronaut, I was summoned to an ultra-classified meeting at the Pentagon about the military space program I would help lead in the coming years. It was the kind of invitation that represents the apex of any astronaut's career, access to the best-kept secrets of the American space empire. The meeting took place in an underground room without windows, with walls shielded against any type of electronic espionage. Present were only 12 people, high-ranking generals, intelligence agency directors, and me, the only civilian astronaut with sufficient clearance to know those plans. What I heard in those 4 hours forever changed my perception of my country and my complicity in what I considered a conspiracy against humanity. The program was called Dominant Skies. The goal was to establish total military supremacy in space by 2030, including orbital weapons capable of hitting any terrestrial target in less than 10 minutes, military space stations disguised as scientific laboratories, and the development of technology to intercept and destroy satellites from any nation that threatened American interests. But the most disturbing aspect was the list of priority targets. Projected on the classified screen were satellite images of Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, and other Muslim holy cities. General Patterson explained coldly, "In case of escalation with Islamic nations, these locations will be the first to be neutralized. Destroying their religious symbols will cause total demoralization and facilitate our decisive victory." Sitting in that refrigerated room, listening to men in suits casually discussing destroying the most sacred sites of 1.8 billion people, I felt physical nausea. For the first time, I clearly saw the system I had served with such pride. We weren't defenders of freedom. We were an empire built on domination and fear. We weren't guardians of peace. We were the greatest threat to world peace. That same night, alone in my Washington apartment, I opened the Quran I had secretly bought weeks before. I searched for verses about oppression and justice, about the fate of arrogant empires, about how Allah protects the innocent against tyrants. Every word seemed written specifically for my situation. And do not think that Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. He only delays them until a day when eyes will stare in horror. It was as if Allah was showing me that I had a choice: continue being complicit in injustice, or align myself with truth, regardless of the personal price. That's when I had the third and definitive experience. It wasn't in space this time, but in my own bedroom. It was 3:30 a.m. when I awoke with a golden light filling the entire room. It wasn't electric light. It was something organic, alive, pulsing like a cosmic heart. In the center of that light, I saw a human figure radiating absolute serenity. I couldn't distinguish specific features, but I felt I was in the presence of someone profoundly wise and compassionate. The figure extended their right hand toward me and spoke in a voice that wasn't sound, but direct understanding in my consciousness. "Michael, you have been called from the beginning. Your experiences in space were preparation for this moment. Allah has chosen you to be a bridge between two worlds, the world of science and the world of faith. But first, you must choose: continue serving the empire of injustice or submit to the kingdom of truth." Tears streamed down my face as I felt 20 years of pride, prejudice, and arrogance being dissolved by that compassionate presence. "I choose truth," I whispered. "I choose Allah." The light intensified for a moment, filling not just the room, but every cell of my body with a peace that transcends any human description. Then gradually it faded, leaving only the sweetest perfume I had ever sensed, as if paradise itself had visited my bachelor room in Washington. In the ultra-secret file I had discovered weeks before, I finally understood astronaut James Irwin's final notation. True exploration is not external, it's internal. It's not about conquering the cosmos, it's about submitting to its creator. In that moment, I knew exactly what he had experienced on the moon's surface 50 years ago. I got up from bed, turned toward what I believed was east, and for the first time in my life consciously and deliberately pronounced, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah." Michael Rodriguez, the astronaut who hated Muslims, had died that night. Muhammad Mikhail, servant of Allah, had been born. For 3 months, I tried to keep my conversion secret, while continuing to perform my duties at NASA. But hiding such a profound spiritual transformation is practically impossible. I changed my diet to halal food, began performing the 5 daily prayers discreetly, using empty NASA rooms as prayer locations, and started openly questioning certain military space operations during meetings. The first to notice was my direct supervisor, Dr. Harrison Matthews. During a performance evaluation in August 2020, he commented, "Mike, you seem different, more contemplative, more questioning of our missions. Is there something we should know?" It was the moment of truth. After decades of lying to myself about my values, I couldn't lie about my faith. "Dr. Matthews, I need to inform you of something important. 3 months ago, I converted to Islam." The silence that followed was deafening. The expression on his face changed from cordial professionalism to something between horror and total disbelief. He looked at me as if I had confessed to being a double agent infiltrated for decades. You're serious, Rodriguez? Do you understand the national security implications of this declaration?" Within 24 hours, I was suspended from all operational activities while undergoing a complete psychological evaluation. Within 48 hours, FBI agents appeared at my door for an informal conversation that lasted 6 hours and covered every aspect of my life since childhood. Within a week, I was being investigated simultaneously by the CIA, NSA, and Department of Homeland Security. The interrogations were humiliating and explicitly Islamophobic. "How do we know you weren't recruited by terrorist organizations during your travels abroad? What guarantees can you give that you won't use your technical knowledge to harm American interests? Do you still consider yourself loyal to the United States, or does your loyalty now belong to a global Islamic agenda?" The media discovered in September 2020, and the media circus was devastating. NASA astronaut becomes Muslim. Security failure puts space programs at risk. Fox News spent an entire week speculating about how Islamic radicals had penetrated the highest levels of NASA. CNN debated whether astronauts should be subjected to religious loyalty tests. Host Tucker Carlson did a 20-minute monologue about me, calling my conversion treason to Western civilization, and questioning whether I had been radicalized by terrorists through secret space communications. The conspiracy theory spread quickly. Perhaps I had been contacted by extremist organizations using advanced space communication technology. Online comments were even worse. Space terrorist should be arrested for treason. How did this Muslim get access to our military secrets? Deport this enemy back to the Middle East. The fact that I was born in Florida and served my country for 2 decades didn't matter. I had automatically become an other, an internal enemy. If the American government was furious about my conversion, my family was devastated. The call to my parents was the most painful conversation of my life. My mother, Sarah Rodriguez, cried for 15 minutes before she could speak. "Michael, how could you do this to us, after everything these people did to America?" My father, Colonel James Rodriguez, war veteran, yelled on the phone, "You betrayed everything our family has fought for generations. You joined the enemy that killed our compatriots on 9/11. Dad, I didn't join any enemy. I found the truth about God, about life's purpose." "Truth?" he interrupted angrily. "The truth is, you've become part of the religion of terrorists, suicide bombers, those who want to destroy our freedom. How can I explain this to my military colleagues? How can I hold my head up, knowing I raised a traitor?" My younger sister, Lisa, a military nurse like our mother, called me crying days later. "Mike, you've destroyed our family's reputation. I'm being questioned about you every day at the base. My superiors want to know if I show radicalization tendencies. How will I explain to my daughters that their uncle became Muslim?" Christmas 2020 was the loneliest of my life. For the first time in 38 years, I didn't go home. I sat alone in my Houston apartment, looking at old family photos, wondering if Allah was worth all this pain. I prayed for the first time with tears streaming, "Ya Allah, if this is your test, give me strength to endure, because it's hurting more than I imagined possible." The answer came unexpectedly 6 months later. My mother appeared at my door unannounced. She had driven 12 hours from Florida. Her eyes were red from crying so much. "Michael, I don't understand your religion. I don't understand this change. But you're my son, and if this brought you peace, then I want to try to understand." We spent the entire weekend talking. I showed her Quran verses about honoring parents, about protecting the innocent, about the importance of social justice. I explained how my faith had made me more compassionate, more aware of others' suffering, more committed to truth. She listened with a mixture of curiosity and maternal caution. "You seem more at peace than I've seen in years," she admitted the morning she left. "If Allah, forgive me for not knowing how to pronounce it right, if He makes you a better person, then maybe I was wrong about all this." My father took longer, but eventually called in March 2021. "Son, I watched some of your online interviews. You speak about your faith with a conviction and serenity I never saw when you were a nominal Christian. If this is what makes you complete, I accept. I still don't understand, but I accept because I love you. True love always conquers fear, but the price is always higher than we expect." Professionally, I was fired from NASA in January 2021 after 15 years of impeccable career. Officially, for incompatibility with national security requirements. Informally, for refusing to renounce my Islamic faith. I lost my astronaut salary, my benefits, my accumulated pension, and was placed on a blacklist that prevented me from working at any company with government contracts. But Allah had plans I couldn't see. In April 2021, I received an unexpected call from the World Islamic Medical Organization. They had read about my story and wanted to hire me as a pilot for humanitarian missions in Muslim countries devastated by wars, many of which I had helped bomb during my military career. The first mission was to Afghanistan in August 2021 during the Kabul evacuation. The irony was overwhelming. The former Muslim astronaut being sent to rescue people from the same Muslim country his government had helped destroy. Arriving in Kabul as a Muslim was a transformative experience. For the first time, I wasn't there as an invader, but as a brother. When Afghan refugees discovered I was Muslim, their expressions changed from fear to hope. "Aki, my brother," an elderly man told me in broken Arabic, "Allah sent an American angel to save us." I worked 18 hours a day evacuating families. I saw orphaned children who had lost their parents in American bombings, some of which I myself might have helped guide years before. The guilt was crushing, but also purifying. One night, during a break between flights, I joined Afghan soldiers for Maghrib prayer at Kabul airport. Prostrating myself on the same land I had bombed as a non-Muslim, I felt Allah forgive all my past sins. A young refugee, 12-year-old Ahmad, had lost his entire family. During the flight to the United States, he told me, Uncle, my mother always said Allah has a plan for everything. Now I understand. He made you become Muslim to save us. I cried during the entire flight. Today, 4 years after my Shahada, I can say with absolute certainty, losing my astronaut career was the greatest blessing Allah gave me. Yes, I lost my position at NASA. Yes, I lost access to the corridors of space power. Yes, I lost the respect of scientific colleagues. But I gained something no medal can offer: alignment with absolute truth. Now I work as a civilian pilot for a humanitarian organization, transporting medical supplies to Muslim countries devastated by wars. It's not as glorious as piloting spacecraft, but I wake up every day knowing I'm saving lives instead of participating in their destruction. I married Khadija, a Syrian refugee doctor I met during evacuation operations. Our ceremony was in the same mosque where I first learned about Islam. It was simple, beautiful, and based on love for Allah, not military protocols. I still pilot aircraft, but now my mission is to bring hope, not bombs. Allah transformed the instrument of war into an instrument of peace, and I discovered that true national security doesn't come from dominating enemies, but from submitting to the Creator of all. True exploration is not external, it's internal. For years I searched for the secrets of the universe in distant galaxies, in black holes, in space nebulae. But the greatest secret of the cosmos was within my own heart, waiting to be discovered through submission to Allah. The equations that govern planetary orbits are the same that govern human destiny. Everything follows perfect laws established by the Creator. I learned that science and faith are not enemies, but companions in the search for truth. Every scientific discovery I made, from orbital mechanics to quantum physics, I now see as verses of the cosmic Quran that Allah wrote in the structure of reality. The entire universe is a giant mosque where every atom makes tasbih, glorifying its creator. The prejudice I nurtured for decades was just ignorance disguised as patriotism. The hatred I felt for Muslims was actually fear of what I didn't understand. Allah used my own experiences in space, the closest place to heaven a human being can physically reach, to show me that true proximity to the divine isn't measured in kilometers of altitude, but in degrees of spiritual submission. For those watching and questioning your own relationship with power, with the system, with your lives, Allah calls people from everywhere, even from the world's most powerful corridors. For me, it was supernatural signs at 400,000 kilometers altitude. For you, it might be a crisis of conscience, questioning your actions, or simply a void that no worldly success can fill. Don't ignore these signs. Don't be afraid to question everything you've served until today. Sometimes, what seems like betrayal to the system is actually loyalty to truth. And truth always frees us, even when the price seems impossible to pay. I lost a career, but gained a soul. I lost colleagues, but gained a global ummah. I lost worldly prestige, but gained Allah's eternal satisfaction. If this story made you question your own path, share it with someone who needs to hear about courage and transformation. In the comments, tell me, what belief system would you question if you knew there was something greater waiting for you? I want to read every response because I know Allah uses our stories to awaken other hearts. For those who feel prejudice against Islam as I did, I challenge you to meet real Muslims, to read the Quran with an open mind, to study Islamic scientific history that your Western textbooks hid. Ignorance only survives in darkness. When exposed to the light of knowledge, it disintegrates like cosmic dust. For my Muslim brothers and sisters who may be watching, our responsibility is enormous. We are ambassadors of Islam in every interaction. When we demonstrate authentic Islamic values, compassion, justice, humility, knowledge, we plant seeds that can grow in unexpected hearts. My own conversion began not with theological arguments, but with the silent example of Muslims who maintained their dignity in the face of injustice. Share this story in your WhatsApp groups, on your social networks, with family and friends. We don't know which heart Allah is preparing to receive His light. Maybe it's the atheist colleague, maybe it's the Christian neighbor, maybe it's the family member who always criticized Islam. Allah works through our narratives to touch souls in places we would never imagine. And for anyone watching who feels Allah calling their heart, don't wait for a supernatural experience in space like mine. Allah's signs are everywhere. In the sunrise you witness every morning, in the mathematical complexity of a flower, in the justice you feel when you see oppression, in the peace you experience in sincere prayer. Listen to your hearts. Research with an open mind. And remember, Converting to Islam is not betrayal to your culture or family. It's loyalty to truth that transcends all human borders. May Allah bless all of you and guide you to the light, just as He guided me from the darkness of prejudice to the light of submission. Ameen. Write in the comments where you're watching from and what touched your hearts most in this story. Let's make this message reach the ends of the earth, or who knows, even the space stations where future astronauts might be waiting for their own divine call.